It's it's a minute or two after 5. For attendance, we have Trustee Sipcar on the phone, and Trustee Leclerc is joining us in private session in another minute. And so I'm looking for motion for approval of the agenda. Trustee Buckler, Trustee Cook, all those in support of the agenda. That's carried. Thank you very much. Motion to convene to private session. Trustee Burgess, Trustee Armstrong, all in support. That's carried. Thank you. We're now adjourned. evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. At 5 o'clock, before we had our committee of the whole private session, we did attendance, and all trustees are attending the meeting. Trustee Leclerc and Trustee Sipkar are on the phone. And we did approve our agenda for tonight, and then we had to convene into private session. So now we're back, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting. And I'm going to invite Trustee Burgess to give us the land acknowledgement for tonight.
We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you very much, Trustee Burgess. I'm going to just go off script a little bit here tonight and welcome our newest Superintendent of Education to our school board, Mr. Joe Bell. Yep. So, Joe recently joined the Greater Essex County District School Board after serving the students, staff, and community of the Waterloo Region District School Board for over 24 years. During those years, he was a teacher, vice principal, principal, and system administrator. And as a system administrator, Joe supported both the safe schools and program departments, providing him the opportunity to create synergies with the board's approach to student success. I know Joe is excited to join our school board as an educational leader, as a learner himself, a lifelong learner, and a community member. His belief that every student can succeed is what drives his passion for public education. So welcome again, Joe. Welcome. Great. You missed the opportunity for a morning breakfast meeting, so we could have given you the bill for breakfast, like we tried to do with our superintendent of HR, but we'll get you next time. Anyway, for this meeting, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Actions of the board meeting private session. Go to our vice chair, Trustee Cook.
Thank you. So we have the first ones I'll do is F1 and F2, and they're under property. May I have a mover? Trustee Buckler and a seconder, Trustee Burgess. All in favor? Those two pass. The other one is G3 under personnel. May I have a mover? Trustee Hatfield and Trustee Buckler. All in favor? And that passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item G, approval of the minutes from the October 17th meeting. If someone to move them, Trustee Cook, Trustee Buckler. Do we have any questions, concerns about those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in support? That's carried. Thank you very much. Any business arising from the minutes? From the trustees? Anything? No? Okay, I'm going to go on to our student trustee presentation. Gentlemen?
Through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, trustees, Director Houston, senior administration, and members of the public. Last Tuesday at our monthly Student Senate meeting, Energy and Environmental Officer Rachel Bondi, Science and Outdoor Education Consultant Dana Siminovic, and Environmental Stewardship Teacher Greg Weslars joined us to discuss the board's climate action plan and waste minimization in schools. Senators shared with them how they feel their schools are doing with recycling and waste minimization. We also began brainstorming ideas for our holiday goodwill project, and we will have an update after our next meeting. Our Student Leadership Conference Committee is planning an amazing event to provide professional development to aspiring leaders. This conference will be on November 30th, and 15 delegates from each high school will participate in developing their leadership capacity. Over the weekend of October 19th to 22nd, Sarm and myself attended Osta ACO's fall general meeting. We heard from Kathy Abrams, president of OPSPA, and asked questions about OPSPA's advocacy goals for the next year and beyond. We also had the privilege of hosting Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education, to discuss what students would like to see happen provincially. As Western Regional Rep for Public Education, I hosted a breakout session for member boards, and from the discussions, I gathered key concepts to bring back to our board. SARM solicited representatives for his advocacy interest group, which will specialize in student well-being. Big thank you to Director Housting for supporting our professional development at this conference. Startups of coffee houses and esports teams are some of the things happening in our high schools, as well as preparations for spring theatrical productions. Senior sunrises continued during late October, but have ended until nicer weather returns. Riverside's grade 12 leadership class raised $5,000 for the Kidney Foundation with their annual Halloween fun run. And Halloween Spirit Weeks were held to promote school spirit and get students excited for the occasion. I am pleased to announce that I am beginning presentations at schools to promote the role of student trustee and talk to classes about leadership and getting involved in their school communities. I'll be starting on November 15th at David Maxwell, and from there I will be presenting at Mount Carmel Blythewood, Lakeshore Discovery, Herman Elementary, and Dougal. I am still confirming bookings and will be visiting as many schools as I possibly can. Principals interested in scheduling a presentation are encouraged to reach out to my board email. And I would like to thank Director Housting for allowing me to attend these schools and Michelle Marcus for making it all possible. Sarm and I are very appreciative for the ongoing guidance and support we have in our roles in the first couple months. Thank you.
Moving on to Student of the Month, through you, Madam Chair. The Student of the Month for November is Hudson Trudeau, a grade 11 student at Tecumseh Vista Academy. Hudson is an outstanding role model for this month's theme of school spirit. Hudson always brings energy to any school event he attends. You can count on Hudson to start a cheer at a volleyball game or to run and sing at the Pink Day karaoke dash. Hudson always lends an creativity and his unique touch to Vista's holiday celebrations. For Halloween, some students go all out, but no one can rock being a 15-year-old grandma shaking their cane. Or an oversized baby on Halloween Spirit Day, quite like Hudson. His homeroom teacher said, Hudson brings a special kind of energy to the classroom and for school events, which we saw this past week on Pink Day. Of course, Hudson was the first student in line for a hot pink glitter manicure to show his support for Vista's breast cancer awareness campaign. Hudson's positivity ripples throughout the school. Students say he's a really funny guy and he's really enjoyable to be around. One of the great things about Hudson is that he's really enthusiastic and positive. People feel comfortable around him because he's always just having fun. Hudson's example encourages others to break out of their comfort zones. He's an amazing role model for Vista's younger students, showing them what school spirit truly means. Hudson's ability to create unity and school spirit is truly a gift within the Tecumseh Vista Academy. So, congratulations, Hudson, on being selected as Student Senate's November Student of the Month for school spirit. Come on up.
Congratulations, Hudson. Yeah. Thank you. Our second presentation is on our EQAO results. Superintendent Roberts.
Yes. I'm really having a day. So thank you. I'm here to present the EQAO achievement results for 2022-23. And the presentation actually celebrates our student achievement for the 2022-23 EQAO assessment. We are incredibly proud to share that the achievement results showed a large increase in all 3 areas of reading, writing, and mathematics of both our primary and junior tests since last year, based on the expectations as defined by the Ontario curriculum. So some of the contextual data indicates that when we're considering that anywhere from 86% to 93% of our students fully participated in the EQAO assessments, as well as the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. And data is presented there on the screen. So what has changed? Since 2021-22 school year, all of the EQAO standardized assessments have been in new formats being delivered online, as well as the scoring has changed. And as a result, we wouldn't necessarily be looking at the trend data since those prior results have changed. So even EQAO themselves have wiped their data from the old EQAO reporting tool for an updated reporting tool, with 2021-22 being our foundational year, and the data from the previous years have been removed. So math, for both our primary and junior and the grade 9 assessments, are now all computer scored and multiple choice questions only. So the assessment uses what they call a multi-stage computer adaptive model for scoring. And that means that every student starts the test, the provincial standard questions. So they'll all start with the same level question. And as they go through the session, the test is adjusting itself to release either more challenging questions for the student or easier questions based on how the student has responded to the previous questions and how they're answering. In the past, all students who were exempted or did not participate in the EQAO assessment counted as a 0 in their overall school score, but now those results are based on fully participating students. So the contextual data was really important on the 2 slides prior. So the exemptions and absences are now counted, are no longer counted as a 0, but are instead counted as a no data, and therefore do not reflect or impact the overall school score. This is incredibly important in the assessment being more equitable for our students. So for the achievement results for our grade 3 students, we have increased in primary reading 7%. We have also increased in primary writing 10%, and in primary math 8% from last year. We are also above the provincial average for primary reading, primary writing, and on par with the provincial average, as you'll see there. For the grade 6 achievement results, we have increased in junior reading by 4% from last year, the junior writing 3% from last year, and junior math 8% from the year prior. And we are on par with the provincial average in reading, and slightly lower in writing and in math, but in both areas we have increased. So things that in place from last year, and as to the reasons why we have increased. So there were specific action steps in place prior to the administration of the assessment. We presented EQAO training for all the stakeholders, specifically EQAO training for our grade 3 and our grade 6 teachers, as well as the school's learning support teachers. The training consisted on how to navigate the digital tool, the tools that students can use throughout the assessment, and how to practice with these tools, as well as additional strategies and resources for reading, writing, and mathematics. The science of reading professional development was given for all staff, or teachers, in kindergarten through grade 3, and they received 1 total day of professional development with a focus on science behind how children learn to read, which aligned directly to the Ontario Human Rights Commission Right to Read report. And as stated earlier, as stated on the previous slide, exempt and students that no longer counted as 0, which may have also been a positive effect on our scores this year, and as earlier mentioned, more equitable to our students, particularly those of ELL and our students who have special education exceptionalities. Moving on to our grade 9 math. We have decreased slightly by 1% from the year prior, which is very close to the provincial average. But despite that slight decline in meeting the provincial standard in grade 9 math from 2021-22, 38% of our students fell short of the provincial standard at level 2. So we're getting there. And the success rate for the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test for the first time, eligible students, the success rate has increased by 2%. So those students who are writing that assessment for the first time were demonstrated the improvement in that area as well. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Trustee Burgess?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some questions, and they're all around, since we've got a data line, we've scrapped the previous things. I know each school, would be assessing their goals, their state goals, plans, all those things based on data that's now not provincially available, but I would think that the institutional knowledge is kind of there, knowing the kids. We're also starting something that was, like the 21-22 year, still during the pandemic. So I'm wondering, judging trends, we're looking for trends, and we're looking at, positive trends, but is it real? Is it real to, after 2 years of starting something new with new criteria and everything else, to actually say that there's a trend there? Like, at what point does it, I don't even know how to phrase the question, but at what point do you actually say, oh yeah, no, that's legit? I don't think it is not an easy question. I'm just wondering if there's any maybe guidance through EQAO, since everything's been revamped, has this professional development saying, we are getting rid of this because of that, and now we're doing this, and this is what you can look for. There's PD, so...
The director is going to try and provide some answer.
So I'll start, and I think Superintendent Howitt, who had the portfolio last year, may add some stuff too. That's an excellent question, Trustee Burgess, because, and I struggle with it, right, of what are we comparing, from previous data. I also struggle with you're comparing grade 3s from one year to grade 3s of another year. So is it really student achievement improvement, or is it a group of grade 3s to another group of grade 3s who may have very different learning gaps or very different academic achievement, right? So I struggle with all of that. I don't really have a complete answer to what you're saying, but what does determine a trend then, right, is 5 years of a new assessment. And there was a lot of work put in. I was fortunate to be on one of the provincial committees when I was in student success for OSSLT and the revamping of what that assessment would look like. So there was a lot of work, a lot of research from EQAO that was done around the assessments previously were very outdated in what they were actually testing of students' knowledge around reading, writing, and math to move forward to where they've come to now. And a simple move from a paper and pen to digital, right? Which for some students is a challenge. The benefit was COVID, everybody was online, so students became more adept at using computer technology to do their work. But did that translate when, if they struggle with that, even in writing an assessment online now, is very different than a paper and pen assessment. And then I'll let Superintendent Howard add to that.
Thank you, Director Houston. And to build upon what the director said, I think the trend cannot begin until you have cohort data. So a minimum of 3 year, moving into 6 year, moving into 9 year type of thing. So we won't see that trend. The good news is this is the second year of implementation of the change and no data and so on. So the first year that we were with it, though, you noticed that where there wasn't an improvement, and last year the plan was specifically designed to address helping students actually respond to the new test. And outstanding, the performance that has been done, and it states that our students are competent and capable in demonstrating their learning based on the curriculum expectations. So to your question, the trend really won't begin until you look at cohort data.
If I could on that, Madam Chair, the grade 3 to 6 thing, that's what I looked at, and it flashed by, so I wasn't looking specifically, but the math thing. Grade 6 kids were the kids that were, in lockdown in grade 3. I don't know when the EQAO test was as far as our isolation and lockdown and all the learning, but it certainly went through that time. There's sequel out to that, right? So like that, how are we supporting with just digital when that might be another wrinkle? Because for anybody who's here over the next 3, 6, 9 years, we're going to be comparing. So how are we helping, with kids who have IEPs and.
Are you looking for an answer? Yes.
So
Okay.
the scribes are still provided in just in electronic form, right? They're still putting the input for students. And the new program also reads out to students, like the technology tools are available to students to accommodate needs that are accessible to all students and available to students who need it. So if students still require a scribe, that scribe might look, instead of pen and paper, might be it's digital response, right? And it's not the digital input, it's the content and knowledge that they're demonstrating application of their knowledge.
Thank you for your questions. Anyone else? No, I think there is cause for celebration in those results, and thank you very much for presenting that tonight. Okay. Moving on to delegations, we have none. We do have someone on the speakers list, one person, Ms. Gina Marcon's Gina's gonna come and talk to us about L1. Welcome, Gina, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Okay.
Am I on? Yeah. Hello, trustees. I am speaking on L1, the renaming of schools. I give my support to revisiting this in 5 years, as our PL 01 states. School violence, mental health, substantial gaps in learning due to COVID, staff burnout, funding shortages, and so much more. These are, in my opinion, issues to deal with, not school name changes. I am Gina Marcon, and I am not only a retired teacher, but I sit as the co-chair of the Windsor Council of Home and School, and I am a member of the Home and School Association at King Edward School. We need social workers, we need behavior specialists. I was here in front of you last spring to share my feelings about this topic. I mentioned this then. Perhaps there is a time in the future when this can be brought up. I am not naive. I know this is coming. Removing royal names is happening all over Canada. I understand that. I know it will happen here too. But maybe during a better time in the years to come. Our funds are needed to keep classrooms free from violence, give our students a place to run outside, a library to support their literacy, teachers who are safe and supported, EAs, CYWs, DSWs, and ECEs who are safe and supported. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gina. Does anyone have any questions of the presenter for clarification? No. You were very clear with your message. Thank you. And thank you for bringing that forward again. New business L1 is the policy and regulation for naming and renaming of board facilities. And Trustee Sipcar, if you're there, we did get an email from you that you wanted to make an amendment.
Sure. I can move L1 if you can hear me.
Yes. Yes. So do you want to make the motion and then the amendment?
Yeah,
Is
I'll move L1.
Okay, you're going to move
Yeah,
L1.
and then
Sorry, I need a supporter for L1, Trustee Burgess. And do you want to now move forward with your amendment? It's on the floor.
Yes, I will.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so I will now move the amendment that no school or facility will be named after a living person or persons, and I will move that that gets added to the naming criteria on, I believe it's page 3 of, in the regulation, on 3 of 5. It will be, it'll be on page 4 of 5. Under the naming criteria. And I did send out an email to trustees for the rationale for the amendment, and I'm happy to speak to it if I get a seconder for the amendment as well.
Thank you. So a seconder, Trustee McKinley. Are there any questions on the amendment? Oh, Trustee Buckler?
I just, when I saw the message, I just had a curiosity about David Suzuki School. How did we get away with that if that was on the book?
So I wouldn't say we got away with it.
No, how did we do it? How did we do it?
We went through many steps for special permission, not only just locally, but with Dr. Suzuki himself.
I just wanted to ensure that that opportunity would be available to us again, should something that exceptional happen again.
If it's exceptional, there are hoops that we can consider going through.
Correct. I'm just making sure we're leaving that open for an exceptionality.
There's nothing in the policy for an exceptionality. So if that were to happen again, it would have to be brought forward and by motion, and then we'd start all the hoops. So, yes, but we don't provide for an exceptionality okay, as long as you're clear on that. Okay, can we vote on the amendment? All those in support? That's carried. And I'll just mention that it was there all along, and we suspect that somehow through revisions and copying and pasting, it accidentally got moved off the table. So we're just putting it back. And on the main motion as amended, Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just would like to say that at Policy Committee, when we've looked at this a couple of times, at the last meeting, which was on Monday, we spoke exactly about that. But we are approving a policy and a regulation, and that's rules. And the rules are that it's not to a living. So it would have to be really extraordinary and in a high level of probably unanimous, kind of thing, and it would come for a reason. So we're not doing that. We're doing the rules and regulations right now. And I do support this, and I think you're exactly right. There was a long legacy of having that rule in our naming policy that it have to be, posthumous, and there would have to be a legacy and an examination of the name and the character, etc. So I totally support it as amended.
Thank you for that. There was a lot of work done by the policy committee, and I appreciate it. I think it was time to fix the policy and regulation, and I think you've done a good job to the policy committee. Are there any other questions? Trustee Chin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is that on page 5, on page 16, and item 11, when a building or facility is to be renamed, any group or individual may propose a name change for an existing facility to the board through a written request outlining the reasons for the application and accompanied by a petition of at least 100 public school supporters, which includes their home address and signature. I just don't know why we cross this out and kind of lose the criteria for a building or facility to be renamed. I have concerns about this.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask someone, probably appropriately, Trustee Sipkar, to answer that.
Sure, I can do that. So if we looked that part is crossed out, are you guys hearing an echo? Is it just me? Okay, I'll try taking you off speaker. In that case, Trustee Cheen, that part was replaced by the part on page 15 there. It says, School names across the district are to be reviewed every 5 years to allow for evolving and enlightened understanding of justice, inclusion, equity, and diversity to be considered. Then the second part says, if there is a concern of a name prior to the review date, concerned members of the school community or general community should complete the school naming request form, which is Appendix D. I think the policy committee, and I think Trustee Chin, you were not able to be present at this meeting, felt that the petition for 100 public school supporters was a bit irrelevant and not necessary. And so instead, that new appendix would be something that would be vetted through administration to see if there was any sort of credible rationale for a name change. So that way, for example, a group of 100, supporters can't just want to change a random school's name for any reason. There has to be some kind of substantive reason, and then administration would bring that to the board. So anyone else from the policy committee is welcome to jump in there, but that's my recollection of that, why we took that part out.
So just so maybe you couldn't hear very well, but so there's still a process that you can apply to change the name of a school. It's on the page before, and then there's a form to fill out if you want to ask for a school to be renamed. So, do you have a supplementary question? Yes.
Yes, I can see the change of the parts, and I have a feeling that the policy committee actually lose the criteria and make it much easier to initiate a name change. And to my understanding, if we change the name of the schools or buildings, it costs a lot of money. We should give a lot of, prudence and be careful. So this kind of change can make a lot of, occasional, issues coming out, and kind of, it costs a lot of money. So I want to support this part of change. And also, I think name is also a asset, and many names have good reputation. And if we change it every 5 years, and the graduates may, lost the reputation asset to the school. So I want to encourage that we change a lot, so frequently, every 5 years.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
just to be clear, any name change would have to be approved by the trustees. It just doesn't happen because someone fills out the paper.
Even it's approved by trustees, but the initiation is so easy, and it will cost a lot of variety and very occasional. Yeah, so I won't support it.
Okay,
Thank
Trustee
you.
McKinley?
Yeah, being a member of the policy committee, and I've been on this review several times over the years, I thought this was actually a good way of doing it, because after they give a good and excellent explanation for why they think the school name should be changed, then it would I believe we talked about it going to the director, and the director, I'm sure, would probably also have conversation with the superintendents before deciding if it had enough merit, that they would then bring it to the trustees to have a vote. So there's many different steps along the way, as opposed to just a person decides to go and get a petition going in their neighborhood, and the people that are signing the petition may not fully understand all of the background of a name of a school, etc. So by doing the form, then it comes to the director, the director's council, and also then ultimately they may say, I don't know why they're thinking this. This shouldn't go to the trustees. The trustees would never approve this. So there are a lot of steps along the way, and I don't think it's that easy. Probably might have been easier before, when it didn't go through the director. So I'm fully in support of this. The committee did a lot of work on this with a great deal of thought before bringing it to the whole board.
I would just like to comment also to Trustee Chin that I think when you have criteria for a petition, with a certain number of signatures, then you raise the expectation that because you have 100 signatures, that then you have to follow through and make the change. And this way, the application goes through the number of steps that Trustee McKinley described before it even comes to the trustees. So you're not raising false expectations. But Trustee Burgess had her name, but you wanted to that. To that, Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to that commentary, I just want to put a finer point on page 15 where it says school names across the district are to be reviewed every 5 years, not changed. This is about a process, not a decision. It's about a review in a cyclical way, like all of our policies are. There'll be a cyclical review of names. There is also nothing to prevent the stuff that has been struck on 16 to turn into the things on page 27, which is the application. First of all, it's easier to have the each applicant make a declaration that they're an English public school supporter. Often when you get petitions, fact-checking, you'd have to fact-check individuals too, but fact-checking all the petitioners' names, et cetera, that they are indeed kind of eligible to have a vested opinion is hard to do. But there's nothing stopping 100 English public school supporters from filling out page 27 and affecting basically the same kind of political pressure, I'll say, to bring it to the notice of the board. So it's just, I think, a more thorough and fair way, and everybody, rather than just jumping on a bandwagon, will actually be able to provide a detailed rationale for their application and why they support it. So I think it's a more transparent way. And so, again, it's not about changing, it's about the process. And we think this is a very fair process.
Trustee Armstrong?
Through you, Madam Chair, and guys, I actually remembered to say that. I just wanted to. Anyway, with all respect towards the policy committee, I was not part of it. I don't know how many hours you put into it. So my comment is in no way to criticize all the work that you did. But I'm looking at this reviewing every 5 years as like almost a make-work project. Can we not get it right the first time? Not that this matters, but I went to Wortley Road Public School and Tecumseh Road Public School in London. The schools there were all named after the roads. So we don't have to make it a controversial anything. Can we not just get it right the first time? Thanks.
That's why New York City uses numbers, and it's done. Yeah. But thank you for your comment. As it stands now, the policy committee is recommending every 5 years there be a review. I don't think that would be a make-work project. I think that my impression is that they would either have been receiving some input to maybe look at a school name, you know, leading up to that 5 years, or they haven't heard anything, so there's peace in the valley, and we just acknowledge that these are our school names again. That's my impression. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Anyone else? Trustee McKinley for second time?
Yeah, just to the thing about the 100, the petition. The petition would never have shown people whether they were public school supporters, Catholic school supporters, whether they even lived in the neighborhood, had any real stake in the school, but that they were just approached by a relative or a friend or somebody they didn't know at their door. So I think this way does make it better. There's a lot more thoughtful consideration going into what the reason was given, and then research into whether that's a viable reason. And then ultimately, the trustees are still making that decision when it comes to them.
Anyone else on the amended policy, amended motion? Okay, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in support? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the report of the Director of Education, M1.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So it's actually only been 3 weeks since our last meeting, but within the report this evening, you'll see that we've been quite busy and lots of things happening around the district in a very short period of time. So we are currently underway already, planning and preparing for some of our time for our grade 8 information nights. I know that's hard to believe, that we're already starting to get the grade 8s ready to be visiting either their family of school, high school, or other schools within the district for their high school of choice, and visiting with their families, because next September, although it seems very far off, it's actually vital right now that we start this process for us to be able to then have students be selecting their courses in the beginning of 2024 for them to be ready and set by September. Last year, we honored the Essex County Black Historical Society with the Champion of Education Award. Due to some scheduling conflicts, unfortunately, they weren't able to join us that evening to receive it. So thank you to Superintendent Howitt, who did go to bring them and receive their award and presented it to them at one of their recent meetings. And we're very appreciative of the work that they do and that they have done for us, especially in the work that they did in helping to craft our African Canadian Roads to Freedom document, and acknowledging them was a great honor. We recently enjoyed the Great Big Crunch with lots of locally grown apples that helped to emphasize how and why we should eat healthy foods. They were delicious apples for anybody who had them. And then our grade 11 students throughout the board participated in the University of Windsor Science Olympiad, and congratulations to the team from Leamington District Secondary School who took home the actual championship from that event. Our Waste Reduction Week is a big part of learning about how to limit what we throw out every single day through waste audits. Everyone saw how much gets tossed in the garbage. We focused on recycling, reusing everything that we can so fewer things actually end up in our landfill. Local Government Week, as you know, was observed the week of October 15th to the 21st. I appreciate the efforts of all of the trustees who visited the schools to expand everybody's understanding of the role that they play in governance and public education in Ontario and the importance of that critical role. The local media have picked up recently on some of our great things that are happening in our schools, including the Windsor Symphony, bringing music to our students, a former student who started a business at Bell River High School, getting $1 million investment in their appearance on the TV show, The Dragon's Den, and a Herman student, the Herman students who lent their hands to IRCA on Arbor Day and planted trees. Breakfast and snack programs are thriving in our schools, and we are so thankful to our community partners, such as Pure Flavor Greenhouses, who support the students at James L. Dunn Public School, where 300 students every single day get things off to a great start with nutrition and friendship that's provided through the community partner. And community partners come in all shapes and sizes. At Gore Hill, a local farmer, Don Haggith, donated pumpkins for some seasonal inquiry-based learning. Hundreds of our students attended Level Up, which is a career fair that introduces young people to some of the opportunities available to them in our skilled trades areas, where they get to meet and speak with people from the various industries within our area, and several students of our students across the district participated in that. Students from Kingsville Public School participated in the Great Migration Paint-Out, which is an annual art show where artists from across the province and Michigan display their work, and a number of the Kingsville Public School students came home with prizes for their own submissions. I was able to get out and visit some schools last week, which was an absolute sheer enjoyment. I enjoyed my time on Halloween Day at Tecumseh Vista Academy and got to talk to students and staff and see the great things that they're doing within the building all the way from kindergarten to grade 12. I was also just down the street at Dougal Public School with our special assignment teacher for well-being, Jody Nolan, and witness the wonderful things that she's doing in helping the young people be mindful, and not just young people, old people like myself. I've actually used some of her techniques just recently in terms of mindfulness, and they're very helpful. I'd be happy to do a demonstration if you'd like one later, but Jody's far better at it than I am. And I'm also grateful to former Greater Essex County District School Board students like Keegan O'Neill, who recently visited Sandwich Secondary School, where she developed her love for and her knowledge of photography. She talked to students about her successful venture, Floofy Studios, where she takes pictures of family pets, and she has built it into a wonderful career. And I have a few other things, and just in terms of we're continuing to provide schools with communication and resources to support them in the impact that the Israeli and the Palestine war is having on several of our school communities. And those that are impacted by this and the loss of lives are in our thoughts daily. We've been extremely busy, particularly in our business department, and thank you to Superintendent. So I'm superintendent, you're superintendent, I'm Superintendent Armstrong for her team in the business department. So they recently just finished completing the 22-23 school year. They also worked on our capital priority submissions. They've completed several ministry surveys, and that they've also been providing work around the revised estimates now that we've reached our October 31st count date. So a tremendous amount of work for your team, and thank you very much for all of that within a very short period of time. And I'm not sure if the ministry actually realizes the amount of work within a very few weeks that comes out of our business departments, and it's been very demanding on that department, so thank you to you and your staff for that. We're continuing as a senior team to work our way through Bill 98 and all of the requirements within it that need to be met. We are still, unfortunately, waiting for our data from the ministry to be able to formulate our student achievement plan, and as you'll recall, we're required to communicate to our school communities twice a year. We would like to have that first communication go soon, but we have not yet received our data from the ministry. And then on Friday, November the 10th, we'll be observing Remembrance Day in our schools and also here at the admin building, since November the 11th falls on a weekend this year. But we do have several of our schools who are actually participating in community events on November the 11th, although they're hosting ones within their own schools. And tomorrow we will recognize Indigenous Veterans Day. And just in closing, a personal thank you to both the Chair Hatfield and to Vice Chair Cook for your leadership, your guidance, and your support as I've transitioned into my new role. Since this is the last board meeting before we have our organizational meeting of the board on November 27th, a very heartfelt thank you to both of you for what you've provided me as I've moved into my new role. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, and I would say that you gave us a great deal of evidence of why we remain GECDSB proud. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions of the director's report? No? Great. Well, thank you. M2 is the report of the OPSPA director. That'd be Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll just say that this last weekend was the first Western Regional meeting of OPSPA, and it was Western Region and Central West, so sort of if you can think of Grand Erie around Brantford and all of that, all the way up to Tobermory and down. We, Superintendent Bell, we had our meeting at Oak Creek Public School. Hosted by Waterloo Region District School Board. This is the second year of operation for Oak Creek in a brand new, what seemed like teeming area of all new housing, etc. And it was a great design of a school. We had a school tour, etc. But we did meet with Central West, and so we had our individual regional meetings, and then in the afternoon, after a very nice lunch that they gave us, we also had OASC, which is the Ontario Education Services Corporation. I hope I got that right. Which is OPSPA and our Catholic counterparts, and CODE, the Council of Directors of Education, etc. All of those folks, that organization standalone, offer us a governance workshop aligning the Education Act with your multi-year plan, and board self-assessment. I would say that we have a gap in the board self-assessment process. And I'm hoping that in this next year that we look at developing a board self-assessment. There are some great templates and opportunities for that, but I think it's a very valuable process, and we had some great sharing of across all of those boards, sharing what they do for their self-assessment, and it's quite varied. So there's no perfect way, but we did concentrate on that board self-assessment process as part of the workshop, and I did take some notes, and if anybody wants them, I've got them. The Western Region meeting agenda was very full, and we did talk about our legal defense fund policy, which is changing. OPSPA feels very strongly that where we used to have a capped amount for a legal defense, that there are so many issues that require intervener status. For example, when we're trying to get, good utility rates, in a utility consortia or something, and we need intervener status at the whatever it was, the energy board. Everything. Well, what can I say? Rates haven't gone down, and it hasn't been raised in 20 years. So we discussed that and its impact to the OPSPA budget, and we did have a pretty good consensus that it needed to kind of face reality and the cap come off. We gave feedback on the preliminary grants for student needs discussion, and tomorrow, as part of the policy development work group, I'm going to be meeting with all of our provincial counterparts for all the regions, and we are going to make our preliminary stab at the GSNs, the grants for student needs. And there's a thought that that the ministry is trying to reduce some complexity, and there's a simple statement saying the modernization of special education. I like the idea of modernization of things, but I'm always a little afraid when I hear the modernization of things, because very often it means simplifying it to a place where you lose a lot of the nuance that you do need. So I have some questions about the modernization of special education and its effect on, grants for student needs. So, but we did talk about some advocacy things at the end of this month. We had to make plans for Advocacy Day at Queen's Park, knowing that many of the organizational meetings may have occurred before the Advocacy Day, but we are planning on making some pretty strong points on what we think are the highlights, as far as issues go. There will be a full day of planning on this. It's on the, Queen's Park is on the Monday, a reception right to the evening, so for early right to the evening, but on Sunday we will be having a board of directors meeting and some preparation for that advocacy. We also talked about some strong advocacy on the federal level. For example, getting the CPP and EI funding that isn't happening, that we're incurring, and it takes a huge chunk out of our budget that really should be cash flowing through, and it's not. So we had some really good, really rich discussions. I was very happy to be there on Saturday. We did sort of like one of those democracy things about what issues are really pressing as far as funding, etc. Student transportation seems to be a huge concern right across the province. Nobody's in a happy place. Nobody. There was not one board across the province that wasn't suffering with either busing shortages or just the funding and the punitive nature of the funding, and not meeting anything. So therefore you're stealing from another line, Mental health supports was very high on the need for additional funding and support. We didn't, want to compromise that either. And And I will just end my report with that, but there were provincial updates and our regional update, and on behalf of Greater Essex, I did share what we've done in the last little bit since our last regional meeting. And our next regional meeting would be tentative, not at PEZ, but January 13th. And then the Public Education Symposium, you should start thinking about that. That is in January. I'm sorry, I don't have the date written down, but 20-something, I think. And it's a very good opportunity for some great networking and understanding what other boards do and how they can do things differently or whatever, but also confirming that we're GECDSB proud. That we usually, lead in a lot of things. But there's some great workshops being planned. And as of today, an announcement went out that we do have a new OPSPA staff member that has been assigned to event planning, et cetera, with a heavy emphasis on professional development. So I look forward to that. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the report. Do we have any questions of Trustee Burgess? No? Thank you very much for the report. The next report to be received is our one-year report on dismantling anti-Black racism strategy, and we have the report. Is someone speaking to it or just answering questions? Superintendent Howitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On pages 28 to 49, you'll see the report. It outlines the first year of implementation of the dismantling anti-Black racism work based on the 8 principles and 5 strategic priorities. We met on October 11th with the steering committee to share the report from last year, and at that point they gave us some initial consultation in the plan for moving forward. For the 2023-24 school year. We meet actually this week to again further develop that plan. And I would particularly like to acknowledge the people listed on page 33 to 35, in particular Tana Turner and Turner Consulting and the committee, the implementation committee. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer on behalf of the senior team.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have questions of the report? You've had it for a few days to read it, but it doesn't mean that you can't ask the questions another time. You can email Superintendent Howitt and she'll take care of it for you. Okay? Yep. Trustee Burgess?
Can I ask the steering committee who is it still in existence? Yes? No? Yeah. Who are the new members? Because there were members on that committee that are no longer with us. I'm wondering who was assigned, because is it in our superintendent new?
Are you looking for new superintendents that have been replaced?
I can see 2 that I'm looking at, but I don't know if there are any others. I'm just wondering, in the steering committee, has it changed? It looks to me that there might be some different leadership on that.
The implementation committee remains the same of members of our community. The steering committee that includes the Greater Essex staff now includes Superintendent Joe Bell, Superintendent Shelley Dubin, Superintendent Raquel Roberts, and Superintendent Chris Boulay, new to the committee this year. When we have been working collectively as a senior team in discussions to plan on what we could effectively and efficiently implement well in our commitment to the community.
Thank you. Then we're going to move on to the next report, which is our math action plan. You have that pages 50 to 59. Do we have questions on this report? Yes, no? No questions? Again, if you do have questions later, you can email them to administration, okay? And I thank administration for the report. Next, M5 is the chair's report. I have a very brief one. This is the last regular meeting of our year, as the director has acknowledged. And a reminder that the organizational meeting will be held on Tuesday, November 21st at 7 p.m. I don't have anything to report tonight specifically, but I would like to acknowledge Remembrance Day, coming up on November 11th. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. And thank you to all our schools who have partnered with veterans and local branches of the Royal Canadian Legion to ensure that our students understand the importance of Remembrance Day. At my own Legion branch, Branch 255, there are wonderful displays of artwork from our local students around that Riverside area in honor of Poppy Day. And it shows that our students care a great deal and understand about the significance of November 11th. And I appreciate the staff leadership that goes out to make that happen. Also, I thought I would end this year's chair with this thought. November 13th is World Kindness Day, and it's celebrated around the world. Being kind to others and receiving acts of kindness can lead to feelings of well-being in self and others, and kindness itself is believed to bridge the divides of race, religion, politics, gender, and physical location. If kindness was the norm around the globe, perhaps we could plant the seeds to ultimately harvest world peace. Never forget the powerful impact of kindness. And with that, I end my report. Question period. Trustees, do you have any questions for this meeting? Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've been asked to ask a question. Recently, I met with the chairs or co-chairs of Kingsville District High School and Jack Minor Public School, and they're getting together with the family of Kingsville Family of Schools chairs. So that would be additional Kingsville Public School and Harrow Public School as the graduates go to KDHS. And they have some questions because in this final year of those buildings existing, they have some real strong desire to get the things that will kind of have the new build on Jasperson hit the ground running as far as having the same amenities or the same things that they're used to having at their soon-to-be former schools. And they've got some really ambitious fundraising opportunities, including some local sponsors, et cetera, for some things that would require partnership with the school board. And they want to make sure that this process of planning at the school level means that when they transition to the new building, that money, that purpose, that effort carries on to the new building intact and in trust. And I didn't have anywhere near the answers for anybody. I was really glad that everybody was so keen and engaged in the transition. Some of them will be obviously there. So my question is to superintendents. I've asked already about some of the transition plans, but how can we ensure that the school school council's fundraising for these schools are actually affecting the whatever the outcomes are at the new building? And how are those four school councils? How can we hold that money in trust for those shared goals?
Okay, do we have someone who has an answer to that?
Superintendent Armstrong has done a lot around fundraising.
Okay, Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Interestingly, I've had one school council reach out to me, and my initial reaction was it's important not to work in a silo. So I think it's very important because it's going to become a new combined school community, that whatever decisions are made by the individual parent councils, that they mesh together in terms of what the whole school community is going to need. So I think that's going to be like the first message that people need to understand. And I think whatever it is that's decided also needs to be reflective of what the community itself wants. So I think that those things do need to happen. Certainly we will track that funding that schools have, like their school generated funds and funds that have been raised up to the end of the school year. We will hold that and we will combine it and will transfer over to the new school as an aggregate amount that will be available going forward. In terms of initiatives, I think it's really important that they are working with the school principal, which I know is challenging because we haven't named who that school principal necessarily is going to be for the elementary and the secondary panel. But at least they should be working with the combined school principals, I would say, for now, for some of those conversations and discussions. And I think that those principals should also be reaching out to my department and through facility services to make sure that anything that's being coordinated and planned is something that can be supported by the board through infrastructure and through all of these areas that they may be looking at.
Supplementary, Trustee Burgess.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you for that answer, and they're already on that page. So they're already working cohesively, and they know that they're already there. So they're along this, and they're wondering where the school board's going to meet them in that same collective way. I think the principals pretty well all know because they liaise with the school councils. And they will be continuing to have those joint meetings and joint planning and that vision. They want this transition year to really, have some good outcomes. So thanks for the answer, and I'll let them know that, they're maybe watching, I don't know, that they're on the right path, and they'll be in constant contact with you, Superintendent Armstrong and Superintendent Otwinder.
Superintendent Otwinder wanted to also comment
Cheers.
as
Thank
part
you.
of the transition team.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Madam Chair. I actually spoke to the council chair over at Jack Miner today, and she had a number of questions for me that were answered. I, along with Shelley, have done this quite a bit in the last 10 years for me, for her, I don't know, 5 or 6, I'm not sure. So all of her questions were answered. She shared with me what they're going after, and they're working together. So sounded really good.
Trustee McKinley, you have a question?
Yeah, question come up while you're discussing that, and I started thinking it's a lot of school closures in the same family, and one of them being a high school. And with school closures comes closure ceremonies, and hoping that the logistics are also discussed so that you don't have families missing one because the high school's closure ceremony was on the same night as the grade school. So just a little logistic thing to keep in the back of your head. Maybe you already did think about it, but just for my 2 cents.
Superintendent Otwinder?
Yes, and that's part of the transition planning that we do. And so the very first meeting that I have when we have schools that are either consolidating or going into new buildings is when I bring all of the different departments throughout the board together with all of the principals so that they know for the school closure who they have to go to and the explanation for what it is they have to do. And if they're not quite sure, they then call the person because I provide the name and the number of that person. So for example, if it was something around the school generated funds, Sean May was at the meeting, so he can answer those questions, and then the little blurb is underneath his name with his phone number.
Are there any other questions for this meeting? Seeing none, are there any notices of motion? None. Are there any announcements?
Ma'am, you have a notice of motion? Madam Director? Madam Chair, sorry. You have a notice of motion?
Yes, I just drew a blank. But yes, it's
I can move it, like, or whatever.
Because I just drew a blank on the wording. Sorry.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm going to be making it up. That the Board of Trustees have a special meeting of the board on Monday, November the 13th, to affect a bylaw change prior to our organizational meeting.
Yes, with regard to
the selection of scrutineers.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Sorry, I just blanked right. I knew what it was. I wrote it down. Thank you, because the words just wouldn't come. Thank you. Any other announcements? Oh, yeah. Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, I'd like to just mention for the first time in October during Local Government Week, I was thrilled to be able to attend my own grade school to talk to Miss Rich's grade 5 class around my role as a trustee. And it was so exciting. And those students were so ready. They had apparently already done some research on me. So I gave them a little bit of tidbits of information that's not on the website about me. So anyway, it was just exciting to be able to do that and share that. And I'm also looking forward this Friday to attending Southwood's Remembrance Day Assembly, as I always enjoy being in the schools for those. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, then we have reached the end of our approved agenda, so I will thank everybody for their time tonight. Declare the meeting adjourned, and we'll see you back on November the 21st. Thank you. Good night.